Welcome to episode 1 of the Philly Foursome podcast. I'm Michael Little, owner of Clubhouse 54. To my left is Braden Shattuck, Director of Instruction at Rolling Green Golf Club. To my far right here is John Bierkin, Director of Instruction at Aronimink Golf Club, and Mark Sheftick, Director of Instruction at Sunnybrook Golf Club and owner of the Sheftick Performance Center. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Absolutely, yeah. So the first episode here, we're just going to talk about who we are, what the Philly Foursome is, what we're about, and just share these ideas with you guys.
Mark, do you want to kind of tell us how this started in your head and why we're here?
So I had an idea. The Philadelphia section, in my opinion, has just a great amount of the golf pros in the Philly section. I think are fantastic. Strong teachers, strong players, strong leadership. I selected a group of individuals who I think are at the top of their game. I look at Braden from a playing and teaching standpoint. He's national club pro champion, 2-time section of the year player of the year. And you got Michael Little. Michael's doing some groundbreaking stuff with putting and becoming a great teacher. And Johnny Bierkin, a close friend of mine for a long time, and a top teacher in the Philly section amongst the country. So I had an idea to bring a group of people together that I knew were better than me at certain areas, and how you become better as a teacher or surround yourself with smart individuals. So we came over to my place. We did a fun. It wasn't fun. I was amazed on how serious everyone took it. I had everyone talk about a certain subject. Braden started with course management, and the cool thing about it was we actually had to stop him. Could have went for another 2 hours, but we said, dude, this is phenomenal stuff, but stop because we got to go to the next one. Then Michael did his, then John did his, then I did mine, and it just kind of morphed into an idea that why don't we do something together, because the goal of that was to continue to learn and become a better teacher. But I think the 4 personalities you have here, the amount of
and the good looks, don't forget that.
Okay, except for me, of course. But I think you have 80 years of experience, different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses. It's amazing what I think this group can give to everyone on how to become a better golfer all around from every aspect of the game.
Absolutely.
That was a little long-winded, but that's me.
Yeah, and this is our first time together too since that meeting.
It is. Yeah, it was a great brainstorming session, and I think we all kind of looked at each other like, we have a lot to share and try to help the golfers out there, and try to encourage and support our fellow PGA pros as well.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I learned a lot during that few hours.
Right, that was just a couple hours. Yeah. So, I mean, when you get a group of people together, right, just a team is more powerful than an individual. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
And I think what you just said there, you form the right team that all have a good vision, that's all passionate. I think the team is strong.
So moving forward, Mark, what is the idea? Can you share with everybody what our idea is moving forward as far as how we're going to present the information and how they can access it?
I think we're starting, and I think we're learning.
Yep.
I think social media is going to be a big deal. Again, I think all 4 heads here, we're learning from one another, and I think the public is going to tell us how we're going to do this. It's like any other business. It will probably evolve as we go. Just the idea of us getting together, doing a podcast to meet us, see what we are and who we are and our personalities is a good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the goal obviously is we're gonna have some platforms to share information, opportunity for people to learn what we have to offer, and for us to get together also in this podcast, talk golf instruction, have some special guests on, other characters, personalities, leaders within the golf industry and the sporting world.
Yeah.
You're really good at this. You know that. I just want to say that.
Did you practice?
John took an online class.
For 10 minutes.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it myself. And Mark, I can't thank you enough. And John and Braden, thank you for including me with the Philly Foursome. This is huge for me, and to help spread the word about putting and what I'm doing here at Clubhouse 54 with Quintic Ball Roll. And I already, as you guys know, I've been just overzealous about like, hey guys, I got my videos done. Hey, I'm ready to do this. It's just like, it really has been great to be a part of a team of, these four individuals that can really, I'm looking forward to learning from you guys for sure, and just helping my
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
instruction.
selfishly, it's a big part of this is us getting together and sharing ideas and making us more knowledgeable, competent, and confident instructors. I mean, that's a big piece of this. That's why we're here. And then it was like, why don't we share this with the golfing world, anyone out there that might want to listen or watch and learn from us. So why don't we go down the line and just kind of introduce ourselves and just talk a little bit about our backgrounds and how we view golf and golf instruction and anything else.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Braden.
Great. So my name's Braden Shattuck. I'm the director of instruction over at Rolling Green Golf Club up in Springfield, Pennsylvania. This is just finishing up my second season, going on my third season now this year. And I've been playing golf for now, I'm 29, 25 years. So basically my entire life. The cliche, my dad got me into it when I was 4 years old, 5 years old, got me the plastic set. I don't know if you guys had the plastic set. Chipping the ball across the living room, running back and forth, and then into the backyard. And I remember this a little bit because I get maybe childhood amnesia a little bit, but my dad said I would just go out in the backyard and just whack the ball back and forth for 4 or 5 hours, every single night until the sun went down. No purpose or anything, just I enjoyed hitting the ball. And I just did that for years, and then I graduated to a 3-club medal set, maybe a little U.S. kids set, and then just kept going from there and started playing tournaments. When I was 10 years old was my first one. I played a Philadelphia Junior Tour event. I think it might have been at Cedarbrook, something like that. And or even Center Square Golf Club back in the day. I don't know if Center Square is still around.
Oh, no, it's not, but that's
anymore.
a good spot.
That might have been the
was
first
a good spot.
9-hole event. So I play a lot of competitive golf, and my dad was my first teacher. He was the one that got me into it and taught me when I was a kid. I worked with a couple different instructors here and there as I got older. Learned a little bit from them. Played college golf at University of Delaware, and then I went and played mini tour golf for 4 years, all up and down the East Coast, all the way up from Canada, all the way down to Florida. So I did that for 4 years. And worked a couple jobs while I was doing that to afford it because, as we all know, mini tour golf is not a profitable business. So I did that for a few years, learned a lot, worked with some really good instructors along the way, and eventually got my way into the golf business teaching and as an assistant golf professional after I got injured in a car accident down in Florida. And now I work as a club pro, and this is my 6th year, I believe, as a club pro, trying to share my knowledge that I've acquired over the years of instruction and competing and strategy and all of those different things within my acumen to try and make people better.
And you just won the National Club Pro Championship, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Very modest.
That's awesome.
You don't need to be that
by
humble.
the
So just share a little bit, and that's something obviously I think in time we'll get more into in other episodes, is all of your experiences, your preparation, and everything that's encapsulated in that. But why don't you what did that mean to you, and what were a couple little things looking back that you think helped you prepare for that in retrospect?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it meant everything to me to see all the years of work and all the setbacks and not playing golf for a few years because of my injuries, to see all of those things culminate into that win Because when I first got into it, when I was working at Concord, it was my first assistant job. I was working at Concord, and I remember talking to the assistant pro there, Sean, and Mike Moses, the head pro, and they're like, you should get into the program so that way, you could, once you get your Class A, you can play in the National Club Pro, and, you could win it, and you get tour starts, and I was like, it sounded great, but it didn't sound like a realistic thing, obviously, because you just talk about it seems like a dream, so that was kind of the intention when I started, was to hopefully maybe get back into playing one day and utilize that as a pathway to play while I built my teaching career as well. And so to kind of realize that dream, it's a little weird. It still doesn't seem real. I haven't had any of the starts yet for the PGA Tour yet. So
and you get six, is it still?
6 this year, yeah.
So for those people out there that don't know how this works, so the PGA of America has 41 sections around the country. We have the Philadelphia section, which takes up pretty much the eastern half of Pennsylvania, a little sliver of South Jersey as well. And so you qualify for the National Club Pro Championship by having a top finish in your section championship, which qualifies you for the PGA National Championship. And then there's 312 players from, let's say, probably 3,000 or 4,000 that actually 5,000, whatever it is, that actually try to qualify. 300 players make it. And then if you finish in the top 20 at the National Club Pro Championship, you automatically qualify for the PGA Championship because it's our major. It's the PGA of America's major. And so if you finish top 20, you qualify for the PGA, and Braden won it. And Mark, how many National Club Pros have you played in?
13.
13. And how many did you finish top 20?
3.
3. So you've played in 3 PGAs. I've qualified for 6 National Club Pro Championships and have not finished in the top 20 yet.
John, I'm tied with you.
Okay. Perfect. So my point is, it's a great thing. It's a great honor. And to represent, fellow PGA pros and to play in a major and peg it with the best in the world it's an awesome thing. It's a special thing. And something I admire, being the son of a PGA pro, I just think it's awesome. So, great job.
That. Thank you. Yeah, no,
so
really
what's
cool.
one or two things maybe just from that experience that stand out?
From the playing in it and...
Yeah, winning the National Club Pro Championship and playing in the PGA, anything that, just one or two nuggets?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is we don't really get the opportunity to play 4-round golf tournaments at multiple golf courses and prepare for that's our biggest tournament of the year as club pros, by far. Our section championship probably, and then if you qualify the National Club Pro, I would say that's like the cream of the crop.
That's our major
for us. That's our major.
Oh, yeah.
So, and we don't play in any 4-round events, so those are a different beast. I had 3 days of prep out there, as Mike knows, practice rounds, trying to plot out both courses. And then if you make the cut, you play 4 rounds. To prepare for that event and to kind of realize how much prep goes into it, how tiring it is. And then we also never have video cameras and live TV, the Golf Channel following us around in section events. I've never had that happen. So it was a new experience to have a film crew filming all of your shots. And I was nobody going into that event, so I don't think I got one shot on camera until the last 5 holes of the tournament. So, but they were following our group, but none of the shots were. You can't really tell that you're on TV. There's people there,
right,
and the camera crews are around, but it's very weird. It's an interesting experience to have all that prep going on, and then it comes down to the last 9 holes, and you've got the camera crews, and you know that people are watching you, and you know what's on the line. To have that kind of pressure, I've never experienced that much pressure. I was pretty calm, and to see how I responded to it from a physical and mental standpoint was very interesting, and I learned a lot about myself during that time, which is now making me even better player.
Awesome. Michael, what's your background?
Thanks, John. So I have a different background from the three of you here. I didn't start playing golf till I was 22. So,
And Michael is one of the better players in the Philadelphia PGA.
You got 1 and 2 right there
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
Two-time section player of the year.
2-time,
What'd you finish this year?
second behind
oh
you.
man, sorry.
Of course, behind you. You're hard to beat.
But that's awesome. I mean, I have to. Wouldn't you say we probably have easily one of the top 5 playing sections in the country?
No doubt.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, South Florida's really good. Southern California's good.
Met section.
Met section, yeah, of course, they're really good. So, I mean, these boys can play, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 tournaments of the year, Brady and I were in the same group.
He beat me both times.
Well, I wasn't going to go there, but you're playing with like Zach Oakley, right? I mean, his father's a legend in the game of golf.
Won the Senior British Open, right?
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know that.
like the last tournament of the year, it's myself, Braden, Zach Oakley, and Brian Bergstall in the group, and I'm sitting there like, well, all right, let's see what I can do today.
Yeah.
I end up winning that golf tournament.
65.
But it's like when we get paired up in the Philly section, it's like, man, like, you have to go low.
Yeah.
Like, you have to shoot in the 60s to win the golf tournament. I don't think there was a tournament this year where in the 70s won, was there?
No, I don't think so.
Haverford? Maybe the Haverford. I think
Haverford.
Yeah.
'cause it
Haverford was
playing
probably the
so
only
difficult.
tournament this year where I think that was 70 won the
Yeah.
golf tournament. So it's like it's so competitive.
And I have to say, I mean, I'm really proud to be in the Philly section. I mean, Jeff Surratt and the whole team through the Philly PGA does a really nice job. They're fantastic. So they do a really nice job with our tournament series and all the other stuff as well.
Yep.
So anyway, so more about you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Interrupt as much as you want. So so I started when I was 22. I did go golfing with my dad and grandfather as a kid, but it was more like playing in the creek and just kind of like just getting out. So 22 is when I actually started, and my dad and I would play golf a lot after work. I was in the auto business with my dad. I worked as a parts counter guy at a car dealership, and my dad was the shop foreman there, and he just took me out like after work and on the weekends, and I ended up shooting 74, like one of my early rounds of playing golf, and I didn't know. I had no idea that was good. I was just like, oh, like my dad's like, look, just aim at that white pole out there in the fairway. He's like, just aim at that and just keep aiming at the poles. And I'm like, okay. So I just kept aiming at the poles. Or I'm just following directions. And I ended up shooting a pretty good score, obviously. And my dad's like, man, you're pretty good. So one of my buddies was going to the Golf Academy of America in Myrtle Beach, and he said, hey, why don't you come with me and learn how to play golf and learn the golf business? And that's really kind of how I got started as a golf pro.
How old were you when you went to
I
golf school?
was 22.
22 when you went.
Well,
to school.
when I went to school, I was 23. I was 20. No, I'm sorry. I was 20. Wait, how old was I? That's a good question. I was 25 when I left for college. So it was like 2 years after I started. 3 years after I started, in that range. And so I quit my job. I sold everything I had. I bought a 1989 Volvo station wagon, packed up my life, and drove to Myrtle Beach. And changed my phone number, like literally, like just completely turned my whole life around. And so I went to school down there. I had a lot of really good influencers down there in my life, and I met a lot of really good PGA golf professionals at that school. And I had perfect attendance in college. I did everything I was supposed to do to learn the business and learn how to become a player. So the first tournament I played in, I shot 101. Which was a very high score. 16 months later, the last tournament we had, I shot 71. It was the first time I broke par. So that was in 2008. So I left there. I actually ended up going to Marion to caddy. And while I was caddying, I'm going, you know what? I just went to school to learn how to be a golf pro, and now I'm caddying. Why don't I go try to be a golf pro? And so then I got a job at a public course called Island Green in Philadelphia, which is no longer there. I worked under a guy named Wally Tittlemeyer. Wally was I'm very grateful that he was my first pro because he was very laid back, very knowledgeable, and really just like wanted to encourage me to be who I am and find my way in the business. So I started teaching juniors and started, trying to play a little bit just because I thought I was good at the time. I really wasn't that good, but I thought I was good. Then I ended up working at Rolling Green, where Braden is now. And at Rolling Green, that's when I realized, wow, you can play in golf tournaments, and there's a whole nother world out there that involves playing. So I tried to get into the tournament scene, didn't really do too well. And in 2013, I ended up calling Mark Sheftick for a golf lesson. And that's really where everything kind of really changed for me as far as playing ability. So, Mark, thank you for that. And as I started learning more about playing in my own game, well, then I started learning more about instruction as well. And that's when, I started, finding different people to shadow and finding other instructors that can help me with short game and things like that. And really, for me, I was just really hungry to be better. It was just, go learn as much as you can, as fast as you can. And I feel like I had a little advantage there because I didn't have any scars yet. It's not hey, I can remember losing, X, Y, Z, in junior golf and things like that, or through high school. And that, to me, that was a benefit to me. I think that helped me a lot to become a better player and to become a better teacher, because it was just all new. Okay, well, what's right? And just go do what's right, So that really helped. And then, in 2016, I finally won a section event under Mark's guidance. And then from there, it was okay, you can play golf now. And qualified for my first national championship in 2016. And I won, I think it was 2 events that year, I believe it was. One player of the year. So, it really catapulted me. And then,
where was that one in 2016?
I finished second that year. I just want you to know that.
Where was the National Club Pro in 16? I think that was my last one.
So it was 2000. Well, I guess I qualified in 16, so I played in 17.
Okay.
That's Sun River, Oregon. And we don't need to get into that story.
I was there. Were you there?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, wait, no.
That was when McNabb almost won.
Yeah.
Omar almost beat him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was at Sun River.
That
was at Sun River.
That's where the PGA Cup is this year. I could be wrong, but I think it is.
That's a great spot. Cool spot. Hard to get to, but it's cool.
I have terrible memories.
Terrible memories.
Terrible
We're
memories.
going to ask you about that.
There's 2 guys in this
So in
room here that signed the wrong score.
So 2016,
Oh, no.
we're at 2016.
So that's 2016. And so now at this point, I'm working at Lookaway Golf Club in Buckingham. And, I'm just continuing to just be an assistant golf pro. I'm building my lesson book. I'm shadowing different guys for teaching. Just really doing everything I can to just be the best pro that I can be, right? And, so we'll fast forward into 2020, or actually into 2019, and the pro at Lookaway left, and I was offered a position to become the head pro at Lookaway in 2020. Well, 2 weeks after I accepted the position as a head pro at Lookaway, COVID hit. So the whole world changed, right? And I think all of our lives changed when COVID happened. And, I ended up just focusing on how can I do the best job I can for the facility, make sure everybody's safe, and make sure everyone has access to play golf. And then the second part of that was, well, we have a lot of new people coming into the game with COVID. Okay, let's teach as much as we can, and let's get on the golf course with the new golfers as much as we can. Well, during that process, my game got extremely good during that time. And I ended up winning Player of the Year again in 2020, and I think I won 3 events that year. And as time went by, I had to focus more on being a head golf professional. So I noticed my teaching kind of started lacking off, my playing started lacking off, but I knew my passions were teaching and playing this entire time. So I ended up hiring actually Mark Sheftick. Well, I don't want to say it like that. Mark joined the team at Lookaway and brought a lot of value to that club. So it took all the teaching responsibilities off of me so I could focus more on being the head pro. Well, during that time, I realized I didn't want to be a head golf professional. And I ended up leaving Lookaway, and it was the best decision that I made, because now I'm off on my own. I now, what I kill is what I eat, right? So I'm now on my own, and now I realize, man, you really have to do a better job of promoting yourself You need to learn more about teaching. You need to learn more about being a professional, and you need to do a better job of playing, so you can make it on your own. And that really was the best thing that I could do. And that was like my initial reason for leaving. And then I got into Makefield Putters. So I co-founded Makefield Putters with two other guys. Both of them are engineers. And during that time, I realized that there's a lot more to putting than just moving that putter head back and through, right? I knew a lot of this stuff just through a lot of my own trial and error and just through different putting coaches that I worked with over the years, but I didn't quite understand it the way that I understand it today. I knew I was on the right track, and
I'm sure you're still learning every day using Quintic. You are a Quintic owner, and that's, for the listeners out there, that's going to be an amazing tool with information that we can share with you. We will share with you, in the future, right? I mean, everything you've learned, the way that Quintic and the other technology you're using, you're just seeing too many patterns with different weights of putters, different putter designs, how certain matchups with certain players are better than others, right? There's just too much individual matchups that need to occur, right? And with the way the putter works and the way the ball leaves the putter and how it influences distance control, directional control.
Exactly. And that's where there's different manufacturers out there building putters because everyone needs a different putter, right? There's not one putter for all, right? And that was like how I looked at it. I'm like, man, I think I can make a difference for the game of golf. And that's where my mind went there was how can I make a difference to the golfers out there in the world, and that's why I moved on from that, and that's where Clubhouse 54 came in, and that's where I built the studio.
Yeah, especially for people here in the Philadelphia area that struggle with putting, there's a great opportunity for them to transform their putting game by coming and seeing you and making sure that the right putter is in their hand with the right golf ball and learning the intricacies. Because some people say, I'm not a good putter and I'm never going to get better. I mean, of course, there's so many things involved there. Largely it could be green reading because it's probably the most underlearned and under-practiced skill in golf, in my opinion. But outside of that, all the things that you're seeing and you're learning using Quintic and other technology, there's a tremendous opportunity for people to improve their putting.
Well, yeah, and I like to say, awareness. Okay, are you aware of what your putter's doing? Are you aware of what your golf ball is doing in putting? Right. So a lot of times the argument I get a lot is putting is all feel. Okay, well, how do you know what to feel? And that's what I'm teaching people is what to feel. Once people are aware of what to feel, well, now, man, like you can make putts now because now you're aware of speed, you're aware of face position, and that's what I'm teaching a lot of with Quintic, and that's what Quintic is showing a lot of players. Like Braden came in today and he said, man, I got this new putter. I love this thing. My speed control's great. They matched up his feel. Right, he's now matched up. So, yeah, he's going to make more putts because now he knows exactly how far that ball is going to roll out.
And so one of the things is now, science is so much a part of golf instructional research and teaching. But one of the things that, people out there can do is they can actually, it's not just trial and error of, let me just try this putter and try that putter. We can actually... And some people get lucky finding a putter that just happens to match up for them. But you can circumvent that, Michael, right?
Oh, yeah.
Golfers out there can come see you, and you can start to hone in on whether it's the weighting or the length or the design or where the lines and dots are on the top line, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you can streamline that and help people get to that.
Exactly. We match up weight, we match up length, we match up lie angle, we match up the lines on the putter, like you're saying. We match up grip. Right. I have some people that call me and just say, I have 6 putters and I want to make a decision on what one to use. Can I come over and we measure all 6 putters and then you help me decide which one I'm going to putt with?
Yeah.
And we don't even do golf instruction at that point. It's just they just want to know which one performs best and then they go from there. There's so many different ways to do it. Obviously, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in there
Yeah,
when they
of
walk in the
course.
door with 6 putters. You know, there's probably something else going on.
Yeah, there might be, right? But that's from stories I've heard back in the day, like the tour players, whoever's Jack or Hogan or whatever. I mean, they would have a bag of 5 irons and a bag of 6 irons, and they would individually go through and select the best one that worked for them, and that's the one that ultimately went in their bag. They didn't know, they didn't have measuring tools, or they just knew that it felt good and the ball flight was what they wanted, whatever it was, the individual shaft or the CG on the head or the lie angle or whatever it was.
Yep.
That worked for them. What you can now just cut through all that and get right to the correct tool for the individual, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's just we're getting there a lot faster, and we're getting there with science, which is great. You know, and that was part of, you know, I'm just going to go back a little bit about me. So in 2021 is when I was introduced to Quintic ball roll, and I went to Florida, actually to Steve Sweeney's places where they were doing their level 1 certification, and I went just to kind of more learn on what Quintic was. And I mean, I was absolutely blown away by the technology, blown away by, you know, Steve Sweeney's presentation, Dr. Paul Heron's presentation on Quintic. And, you know, I'm going, we need this in Philadelphia. You know, so we ended up getting it at Makefield
What's
Putters.
surprising is I don't think I've heard of Quintic before, but I don't know that there's that many units in America. I could be wrong.
So based on what I know, this could be wrong. There's only there's one on Long Island-ish in that area, in New York.
I don't know if my buddy Bill Smittle has one.
He does. Bill Smittle's a level 2 instructor.
He's the man. He's a great guy.
Yep. So he has one, and then we have one here at Clubhouse 54.
Okay.
Makefield Putters has one, and then from what my knowledge is, it's not until like you get all the way down to DC where you can find another Quintic.
Okay.
So a lot of my business travels an hour plus to come see me.
Yeah.
Do you
use Sam Putt Lab as well?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. I just try to stick with just Quintic ball roll for now. Eventually, you know, I'll most likely dive into Sam Putt Lab a little more, or maybe Capto.
Yeah.
I want to be the best I can be on Quintic, and I really like what Quintic offers. So I want to stay with that. I don't want to have too much technology. You know,
sure.
I want to really be an expert in the Quintic category first, and then I'll start to branch off from there. And I have some other things I'm working on too.
So that's where you're at now as of 2024. It is. So it's called Studio 54?
Clubhouse 54.
Clubhouse 54.
Clubhouse.
See, I'm already
not
thinking
to be
about going out partying.
Yeah, not to be confused with Studio 54. So we didn't know what to call it. Obviously, you guys are here, right? It's, you know, I didn't know I didn't want to name it after myself. You know, I wanted it to be a place where golfers can come and learn how to play better golf and, you know, have the best technology at their leisure. So, it was like, well, what do we call this? You know, and we went back and forth. Naming something's really hard.
Yeah,
you guys know,
it is.
right? I mean, we struggle a little bit with Philly Foursome here, and I'm like, you know what? 54. That's 18 birdies on a par 72. Let's go with 54, and then we chose Clubhouse. You know, so that's where the name came from.
I'm excited, selfishly, just to see all the content that you're going to put out, and obviously the four of us will get together on a somewhat regular basis and just share information behind the scenes and have more brainstorming sessions like the first one. But I think, you know, for the listeners out there, you know, when we start to compile all of our content, I think yours is going to be some of the best and probably answer a lot of questions for a lot of people. So, all right, Mr. Sheftick, Director of Instruction at Sunnybrook, which is a great, great club. One of my favorite courses in the Philadelphia area, always in spectacular condition, and the members are always so gracious to allow us to have the Haverford there. You guys just built a new learning center. You were at Marion for how long? 13 years. But probably the best part about the Sheftick family is your dad, good old Ted Sheftick, one of my favorite people in golf. You know, I've just gotten to know him a little bit over the years, but someone who I think should have won the National PGA Teacher of the Year award. Didn't he win like section teacher of the year? Was it in 3 or 4 different decades? 5 different decades.
Wow.
Someone who's just full of energy and enthusiasm and passion and cares, and has helped a lot of juniors. And you and I share that. We're both sons of PGA pros, and growing up in the industry and being around it. So your dad's a cool guy. So tell us about growing up being the son of a PGA pro, and don't get too emotional.
No.
And kind of how that led you to where you are today.
Well, my dad was the head pro at Hanover Country Club for 30 plus years. Family time was at the club, picking range balls, parking golf carts. So when I was really young, I actually avoided a little bit of golf because we were always at the club, and when we were at the club, we were always working. When I was about 15, 16 years old, a certain member gave me a little chat saying, well, Mark, you're probably not going to get into college through academics, so you better do something.
Were they saying you were dumb?
I was challenged.
You've come a long way.
Dyslexia is a different story.
Can I just say, though, in all seriousness, like, it's interesting how just looking back on things, right? Like how we learn, and how we learn in the classroom, or how we don't learn in the classroom, and now being a teacher and trying to communicate, articulate, translate to a student and get them to understand and change a pattern. Where, I mean, look at the stuff you've learned over the years, and particularly all the ground force stuff now, and we'll get more into that, not just today, but in the future, and with some awesome content. But it's an interesting thing. Like, we joke, like, some of us maybe weren't that great in the classroom, or didn't do good on SATs or standardized tests. But when you learn this golf stuff from certain mentors or other leaders in the industry, just the way they explain it, it clicks, and all of a sudden, like a couple people, you came over to Aronimink the other day and shared some stuff, and a few of the assistants were like, wow, that guy's smart. And it's interesting how sometimes just in our society, and this is a side note, we tend to judge how smart or intelligent someone is just based on the grades they get in school, and it's not that. So I just had to say that, because
I appreciate it.
I mean, look at the stuff you've learned over the years, and how far you've come, and how you're able to help golfers understand and then improve. So
golf resonated to me because if you gave me a book and told me to read something, it was hard for me to regurgitate. If I could get my hands on something, if I could actually see it, I was always able to make things happen. I'm very visual. I have to get my hands on it. And if I don't have a picture or a feel, it's very hard for me to learn something. So when you teach golf, and one thing my dad was a master at building training aids. And there was a story that, well, it's his claim, but whether it's true or not, he still claims that the impact bag was actually developed by him and it was stolen. Which, so that could go 100 different ways. And Dr. Gary Wyron's a great man, blah blah blah. Yeah. But I watched my dad, work with all levels of players. And one thing I've his passion, you could feel what he was doing. And he was so motivated to get that individual to get his message. And I remember one thing I thought was kind of neat. In the early 80s, I guess I can tell these stories, but I will. In the early 80s, he went out and watched Ben Doyle teach for about a week. And, Ben was really big into bent right wrist, really get that impact, a little bit of handle dragging.
So for any of the listeners out there, Ben Doyle was a huge golf machine guy, right? Didn't he study under Homer Kelly, if I'm not mistaken?
Exactly.
Okay.
And Ben, so my dad came back and he got so into this.
So the Golfing Machine is a golf book. It's a yellow golf book. For those of us in golf know it's got a yellow cover, and it's very engineering based.
And exactly. And there was a lot of great information in there. But my dad came back and he was so gung-ho about teaching these certain positions that he had the entire membership shanking the ball. And he said, "Oh boy, I better figure something out before I lose my job here."
Wow.
So then he started to, become friendly with a lot of different teachers, and he just like the rest of us, the thirst of knowledge, how much he wanted to learn and grow, just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And just watching that through the years, the amount of conversations, and unfortunately, he didn't have social media, didn't have email, didn't have cell phones, so he would reach out, he would fly out, and just go watch a lot of teachers, and he just became, he could always find a way to figure it out. He could always find a way to communicate it, and again, you could feel his passion. And a lot of the pros in the Northeast probably had spent a little bit of time with my dad.
Yeah.
So I realized at a young age, I got a nice little thing here. My dad's one of the top teachers in the country, and I started to really dive into golf. And then when I was about 16, I won my first big tournament. And then I wanted to go into more of a playing. I wanted to try to make the PGA Tour, probably like the rest of us did when we were young. So I won my first big tournament. I was 16. That tournament propelled me into a college scholarship in South Carolina, Coker College. It was Division II, but it was a good spot for me. After I got out of college, I played the mini tours for about 5 years, up and down all over the country, Canada. Ended up playing, for 5 straight years. But what was interesting when I was out there playing, I traveled with 4 South Africans and 5 Australians, which is another story within itself. And they were always coming to me for a little bit of help. Mark, watch my swing, watch my swing, watch my swing. And I don't know if I ever had that killer instinct. I always found a certain pleasure and a certain joy of helping someone else out. Watching someone hit the ball better, watching someone get to an understanding about their swing, it always fascinated me. So I pretty much quit playing full time for multiple reasons. And then I called up my old boss, Scott, and I used to work at Country Club of York, and I said, what's happening up in the Philadelphia section? And he said there was an assistant teaching job up at Sunnybrook. So I went up there, and I taught there for 5 years, and then I took over as director of instruction at Marion for 13. And that was a wonderful time of my life. All of it was wonderful. But Marion gave me a platform where I was exposed to more people. The amount of knowledge I learned from that time was astronomical. And just my dad introduced me to a lot of great teachers, and just spending time with great people, great teachers.
Doc Neal, Rob Neal, who's a good friend of both of ours.
Absolutely. Doc Neal is the one who really got me into technology. He's the one who challenged me to dive down that rabbit hole with technology. He was one of the guys that would always preach to me, make sure you get uncomfortable. If you feel comfortable, you're not growing. So if you don't know this stuff, start learning it and start diving down into it, because that's how you're going to get better. And that's kind of and now we're after a pretty good playing career, and I think I've done a pretty good job teaching.
Yeah.
Just still always continuing to try to get better and learning.
Tell us a little bit about the opportunity at Sunnybrook to become their director of instruction, and what the leaders of the club, the opportunity they're providing for you, and what you're doing for the members and the new facility, and where you kind of see things going for you in the very near future.
Coming back to Sunnybrook was actually was an easy decision. I knew a lot of the members. A lot of Marion members were somewhat connected to Sunnybrook, so I knew a lot of people there from my first go around. The leadership there at the club, I think, is spectacular. Billy Garbase, the general manager, Greg, the head pro, myself. The vision of the place is, it's a golf club, so we don't have amenities of swimming pools and tennis courts. So we wanted to make the golf experience as strong as possible. So bringing me in was about, okay, we need better programs for the men, women, juniors. We have a lot of good golfers there. We built a state-of-the-art teaching facility, a new short game area, putting course. So my job at Sunnybrook is to make every aspect of the game better for the members. So bringing me in was to take pressure off Greg, but for me to run what I'd like to think a very solid programming amongst just lessons.
Cool.
Your turn.
Yeah, I guess I'm like Mark. I'm the son of a PGA pro. My dad was both my parents born and raised in Connecticut. I grew up in a little cow town between Hartford and New Haven, and my dad was at a privately owned, semi-private club, mostly public, and he was there for over 40 years, and saw we had one of two Robert Trent Jones senior golf courses. It's called a place called Lyman Orchards Golf Club, a really neat, unique place. The Lyman families had their property since 1741, before the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
One of the early homesteads is still there. It's now 1,100 acres. It started as 800 acres, and it's apple orchards, peaches, pears, raspberries. There's a store there where they make apple pies. And so in the late 50s, they started thinking about, and farming, they started to think about diversifying the portfolio. And in 69, they opened a Robert Trent Jones course, and my dad started there in 71 as an assistant and became the head pro in 72 and was there for 40 plus years. And then in the mid-90s, Gary Player designed a second golf course. So point being is I grew up at a busy, popular 36-hole public facility right in the heart of Connecticut. So we drew from the greater Hartford area and the greater New Haven area. And I was a kid. I mean, I was the biggest benefactor of my dad's career there, honestly. I mean, I'm one of four kids and really the only one I'm the only one in the business and the only one that was into golf from when I was a kid until now. My older sister is funny. She got into it for a very short time and won the high school state championship, and then played 1 year in college, and that was it. But anyway, the point being is I grew up at a busy public course. I worked there. I did carts. I worked in the pro shop. I helped with outings and tournaments, and the place was a factory. And so, I mean, I just hung out there all the time. So for me, I knew from an early age I wanted to be a golf pro. And I'm a decent player, but in some ways, it's good that I wasn't any better, because I wasn't just good enough to think I was good enough, if that makes sense, to go play in mini tours and spend the years doing that, chasing that. I never chased that. I went to UConn. I played golf at UConn. It was one of the best decisions in my life, going to the University of Connecticut. I'm a diehard Husky fan, and so from there, I just knew I wanted to be a golf pro, and I really knew from an early age that I wanted to teach. I was a range rat. I mean, I would literally, spend hours on the range all the time just working on my game. For me, I got my confidence from practicing, not necessarily playing. A lot of people, they like to go play to prepare for a tournament. I just got my confidence from practicing and being able to control the golf ball to the best of my ability. So anyway, I just always had a passion for working on my game and helping people with their games. And my father this was, I guess, in the mid-90s, my father had an assistant pro who had spent some time in Texas and knew Chuck Cook. And Chuck Cook ended up coming up and doing a couple golf schools in the summer. And I was like, that's what I want to do. If I could be half as good of a teacher as that guy is when I get older, I can help people. And so that was my first opportunity to be around world-class instruction. And so one thing led to another. I played golf at UConn, and then I ended up working at the Golf Channel for 2 years. I was one of the drive, chip, and putt guys. Drive, chip, and putt started with the Golf Channel. That was their program. They started it. It was an opportunity to have strategic alliances with partnerships with the local cable companies around the country. And so we had Comcast in Connecticut. And so when the event came to the club, my dad hosted it. They loved going to public courses because it was, more open to everyone. And I got to know the gentleman who ran that program, and he just knew my background and asked me to go work there. And even though when I was getting ready to graduate from UConn, I knew I wanted to teach, but I was like, I have to go do this for 2 years. So I traveled the country and did that. And then I started trying to figure out what I was going to do teaching-wise. And I had a couple friends that had worked for Jim McLean down at Doral, but I ended up working, ironically, I ended up getting a top 100 teacher to come work for my dad. He had come to this new club not far away in central Connecticut that didn't pan out. And I had reached out to him before I knew this, just saying, hey, can I come work for you or learn from you? A guy named TJ Tomasi. And TJ was a longtime top 100 instructor. So anyway, he came to my dad's club and taught there for like 4 or 5 years. And I got to work with him for 3 summers, and then I went and worked for Jim McLean at Doral for 3 years. And so anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. But now, I was fortunate. I was at Caves Valley for 5 years. I was at Quail Valley in the winters and Vero Beach for 8 years. Then I was down at Old Marsh for 5 years. Quail Valley to me is one of the best run golf clubs in the country. It's just everything's first class. They make the right decisions. There's not a lot of committees. There's an owner and a partner, and they make the decisions, and they make the right decisions for the membership and to make the club better. So I had 8 amazing years at Quail Valley in the winter, but I just felt like I had accomplished everything I could have. And there's just a little more action down in Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens than there is in Vero Beach. So I went and worked for Tom Dyer at Old Marsh for 5 years. But this is now the start of my 13th year at Aronimink, and we just built a brand new state-of-the-art teaching and practice facility, 6 bays. All 6 bays have TrackMan. The 2 teaching bays have Swing Catalyst and video. So that's where I'm at. I guess just to mention some of the big influences in my career, obviously my father, who's a longtime club pro, and then TJ Tomasi, Jim McLean. I've been fortunate to spend a decent amount of time with Chuck Cook, not a lot, but a decent amount. Dana Dahlquist, Dr. Rob Neal. Doc Neal, ironically, I met him when he came to see TJ in Connecticut one time, and ironically, I ended up going and working for Jim McLean, and that's where Doc was headquartered for a long time. So Doc and his wife Karen are very good friends. I love that guy, and he's so good at sharing amongst teaching pros and golfers. And to me, some people don't know this, but he was a scratch golfer growing up in Australia. So he's very smart. Doc is the founder of Golf Biodynamics. Really, in my opinion, the best golf biomechanist in the world. And don't get me wrong, there's some other very good ones, but Doc, he's a scratch player.
And he can communicate it.
He can communicate it. And so he's been a big influence in my career. A lot of people have. And so, here we are, and it's just the opportunity to be with you guys and to continue to learn from you guys, and to continue to push myself ultimately at the end of the day to help my members at Aronimink and help my students and grow the game throughout America. And, with some of our content, hopefully help other golfers out there and get them even more excited about the game, and hopefully answer some questions that they've had to figure out pieces of the puzzle.
So, John, you had all those really big name guys who were influencers for you, for your teaching philosophy and what you've learned. Who would you say is your biggest influence for your game, for your personal game? Like maybe your own golf swing or the style, or who did you really look to maybe when you were younger, even now that you're older, that you really looked as that's who I want to be like?
My dad was an old school guy. So he would help me, but he was busy working. It wasn't like my dad and I had a weekly regular time where we got together. So he would just come down and help me on the range sometimes. I don't want this to sound wrong, but to answer your question, probably myself, only because I spent hundreds and thousands of hours on the range trying to figure it out on my own, and when I would go play, trying to figure it out. So in that regard, I would say I probably figured out a lot of that, not from a pure like teaching and understanding the golf swing perspective, but kind of figuring out my own game. I probably figured out, and not that I figured it all out, but from like a teaching and a ball striking perspective, I would probably say Chuck Cook. Even though I've only spent some time with him, like actually working on my game, he gave me a lot of the pieces of the puzzle. And Dana Dahlquist, who I think is awesome, is giving me some of the pieces of the puzzle. But like, if let's just say, knowing what I know today, and I was gonna I had money and I was gonna try to get in shape if I was younger and get in shape and try to go make it. The two people I would probably go take lessons from would be either Jim McLean or Chuck Cook, because they're not strict method teachers. I mean, the stuff I learned working for Jim McLean and all the other team of teachers, remember, Jim had the golf school at Doral. I mean, in the wintertime, it wasn't just Jim. It was other top 100 teachers or people that are top 100 teachers now. It was I mean, you couldn't help but just learn something just walking by when you're setting up the range, overhearing, whether it was Chris Tolson or Glenn Farnsworth or Kevin Sprecher or whoever it was down there. You just learn just being in the environment. And so, I don't know, I tend to migrate, and my philosophy is, obviously I have preferences like any teacher, but not being locked into one strict method. I just think that the more we learn with science, like with putting or ground forces, the more we can say there isn't one way. There are some patterns we see, but there's not just one way to do it. There's not one way to move a putter. There's not one way to get a ball in the hole when you're putting on the green. There's not one trace in 3D that it's mandatory. So, I mean, and you look at, there's so many examples on tour, world-class players. I mean, you look at not only Jack and Arnie, and one of my favorites is Raymond Floyd. Some people might not teach his backswing, but my God, that guy, his downswing was freaking awesome. Jim Furyk. There's corridors. And so that's why I would migrate towards Jim McLean or Chuck Cook. I think sometimes, Chuck Cook has a lot of golfing machine in his teaching, but it's not just that. I mean, look at the players that he helped win majors. Payne Stewart, Corey Pavin, Tom Kite. Those guys do not swing the golf club the same way. Their swings don't look the same on the surface. And he was with those guys for a long time. So there's something to be said for that. And that's why I would migrate towards those kind of guys. If I could do it all over again, really give it a run, whatever that turned into, those would be guys that I would lean towards. So a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I think there's something to be said for that.
Love that. Now, I have a question. So based off of what you guys know now, so you've accumulated however many years of knowledge, Mark, you said 80 years between the four of us?
I think if you add it up, I think you take the four of us, it's probably plus 80 years.
For the record, Mark's 55 of those years.
That's a majority.
Hey, I turned 50 this year. I'm moving up a set of tees so I don't have to play against you guys anymore.
The senior division. Very good.
Absolutely.
That's great. So all the knowledge you guys have accumulated, if you could go back and work on your own game from when you started, would you do anything different? Would you teach yourself a specific method?
One thing I would have done, I would have gone and taken lessons from other guys in Connecticut or in the area. See, I didn't play AJGA. I didn't, just my world was hanging out at the club with my dad, and just I only knew what I knew. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have social media. I didn't know the other stuff that was out there. I would have said, Dad, we're working on stuff. That's great, but let me go travel and take lessons from other guys to see what's out there, just to learn and be exposed to that. Or nowadays, I mean, in 5 minutes, you could be a kid living in Philadelphia and you're watching someone in California give lessons. Like, you follow Dana Dahlquist on social media or whoever it is. So that's one thing I would have done differently, just to be exposed to that, to learn.
I would have gone in a different route. How they taught golf stats-wise, I think, was a bad thing. When I grew up, how many fairways did you hit? How many greens did you hit? How many putts did you hit? I think if you look at the stats today, I wish I would have been more in the distance. How far do I drive a ball? How close do I hit a golf ball? Where putting was always a mystery to me. How do you practice putting? I don't know. It was more important. I was taught to hit a fairway versus, would you rather be 150 yards in the fairway or 100 yards in the rough to the pin? So I think the way Mark Brody, Scott Fawcett with Decade, I think how stats are kept are knowledge based on how to shoot lower scores by keeping the proper stats. And you take those stats, that gives you a roadmap. That roadmap should give you a good way how you should be training and how you should be developing. I think is a better way to do it, because I grew up under the Ben Hogan theory, hit balls till your hands bleed. Much like John, I lived on the range. I thought how I could shoot lower scores was hit the ball closer, hit the ball better. It was, at one stage in my career, it was how pretty was my golf swing. I was so obsessed with how pretty my golf swing was, yet I couldn't break 80. And then I would go out with players with swings that I thought weren't as pretty, and they would just kick the crap out of me. So you learn really quick, but then again, it was, you hit 12 out of 14 fairways and you hit 13 out of 18 greens, you did really well. But when you add the scores up, I wasn't getting it done. So I wish I had the same information on how to understand my game better, so I could come up with a better roadmap on what I should be practicing to get myself into lower scores.
Why don't you answer that question for yourself? What would that roadmap look like, knowing what you know now?
I think I would have definitely trained for distance.
I would have done the same thing. See, we didn't even know what kind of club speed numbers we had, let alone what they should be.
We
didn't
Persimmon
have
and Bellata.
TrackMans.
Yeah.
There was probably only a couple people 30 years ago that had this stuff.
Yeah, and if you hit the ball long, the only people I knew who hit the ball really long were, Ben Witter, long drive guys. But yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that the driver is probably your most important club in the bag. If you're not driving the ball in play, it just sets up the entire day. So I think I would have put a massive premium on the driver. I would have put a massive premium on my putting and my wedges.
Which is interesting, because I don't know about you guys, but when I was really focusing on making my golf swing better and making it pretty, like you said, I would spend so much time hitting 7 irons. What an absolute waste of time that
exactly
was, now looking back.
I was just going to go there and say I must have hit about 1,000,008 irons.
Yep.
What a waste of time.
Yep.
So
now I have to say, though, like, if now I put my teacher hat back on for a minute, when it comes to either block practice or what I would call block training, when someone's coming to a lesson for me and I have an hour with them and we're trying to make their swing better, because I am a big believer that the golf swing is the mover of the ball. And whatever that picture is of the golf swing, though, like, someone comes in and they're taking a 1-hour lesson and we're working on their swing, right? I'm probably going to do a lot of grinding on pattern building with a 7-iron or an 8-iron. It's one thing to have a reasonably functional golf swing. It's another thing when you're a better player and then you have to kind of go into play mode and scoring mode. To me, they're kind of like different baskets. So, like, I agree with you, but from a lesson and a practice and a pattern building standpoint, I'm a big believer in kind of block training or block practice, whatever you want to call it. Because it's easy to say that, maybe you hit too many 7 irons, but if I was playing devil's advocate, Mark, maybe you wouldn't be the player you are today if you didn't do that either. We don't know.
When I saw a big change in my game is when I started to understand my swing a lot better. I dove into a world of ground forces, and is that the only thing? Absolutely not, but it really helped me understand what efficiency is, how to generate power. And then I noticed the difference in ball speed, club head speed. Unfortunately, I was already, past my prime to some degree, but I noticed that my swing has gotten better. And when I play in tournaments, I'm never going to play a Braden's game. Your ball speed's what, over 175?
It's like 180-ish.
Okay, and I'm happy when I get mine to 160.
Right.
Okay, so, but a lot of golf courses, I'm probably not going to be able to beat them.
Right.
But certain golf courses, I think I can give them a challenge. But I agree with you, John, that what I did led into a successful career. I've had a lot of success, which I'm grateful for, but I never thought, and you and I had this conversation a couple years ago. You called me up, or we were talking, and you said, Mark, I said, John, if I were ever to try to go on the PGA Tour again, what would I need? Your answer was 30 yards.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Oh,
it.
me? Yeah.
I asked you that
exactly.
question. I said, hey, if I were to go back there and try again.
I do remember that, yeah.
You said to me, he said, Mark, you need about 30 yards. And I said, yep, that's what I thought. Because if someone's hitting 8, 9 wedge, they're reaching par 5s and 2, and I'm reaching them in 3 trying to make birdie. I'm shooting par 1 or 2 under, where someone like Braden, he can overpower a golf course. He's trying to, he's reaching the par 5s and 2. Mike's pretty long, It's hard to compete when someone's hitting the ball significantly longer than you.
So I just want to chime in on this conversation. So,
Welcome back to the
yeah,
conversation.
thanks for letting me back in.
Mouth got a little dry there.
I never seen Mike that quiet before.
Man.
He was getting a little itchy.
Hey, no, you know what? I love this. No, so to piggyback on that a little bit, like I've played in 6 National Club Pros, and the best I've ever come to getting to the PGA was at Belfair, which was not a very long golf course, and it required a little more accuracy versus distance. Last year in New Mexico, distance was huge out there. If you could hit the ball far, you had a huge advantage. Now, you had to hit a little straight on some holes. But so all I've done now this whole winter is just tried to build speed. I'm in the gym. I'm getting faster. I'm hitting the ball further. And I'm saying I'm turning 40 years old next year. My time's running out to
Welcome
make it
to
to
the
a
club.
PGA, right? So it's like I better go work as hard as I can and dedicate myself to gaining. If I can get 15 yards, I think I have a little bit more of a chance.
Big time.
For
the record, this is my opinion so far. We can talk more about this moving down the road, but and my buddy Josh Koch, who's one of the long drive guys, he's just an awesome guy. He's knowledgeable. He's so passionate, enthusiastic, but he's not only good at hitting the ball a long way, but he's good at teaching it. But when it comes to training for speed, and someone might convince me otherwise, you have to be careful. Meaning, if you're going to train for speed, watch out for injuries, but train hitting golf balls. Don't just swing sticks in the air, because your swing could change. Train for speed, actually swinging a golf club and hitting the golf ball. Okay? If someone out there wants to convince me otherwise, I'm all ears, but we had a junior that did that at Aronimink that I don't teach last year. He's a top junior in the area, and he struggled last year. And he's a great kid, and I just,
Was he trying to chase speed?
That's my understanding as an outsider. So anyway, but the point is just for the listeners out there, be careful. If you train for speed, do it hitting a golf ball. The long drive guys, they're in the gym and they're doing certain things, and they can correct me if I'm wrong too, but a lot of it is hitting balls. That's what you got to do. So be careful, because your swing could, for some people, get off track. So anyway, back.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say is that no, it's 100% like,
and knowing what we know now with all the fitness side of it, but the ground forces, like for me selfishly, obviously with our new facility at Aronimink, I'm ultimately excited for our members, but I'm even a little fired up for my own game because I'm a shortish hitter, and I know there's going to be opportunities for me to learn and understand my patterns to help my game, and then just using this technology more to help me help other people that struggle with distance. So, like, we just didn't know this stuff before.
How realistic do you think it is for, say, because we teach a lot of middle-aged guys, right?
Yeah.
Teach younger guys. How realistic do you think it is for somebody who's the typical club golfer to get more club head speed? Because most of the guys that I teach, one of the first things they want to work on is hitting it further. How realistic is it?
To me, it is going to be an individual basis, an individual assessment. But let's just assume they don't have any injury. It just depends on what their swing's like, how much work they're going to put into it. Yep. You know, what's the low-hanging fruit? To me, like, the low-hanging fruit is don't be afraid to swing faster. Do you have any comments on that, Mark? I just like swing smooth.
So just to piggyback off you, I think they need to stop looking at club head speed and start looking at ball speed. You know, I see a lot of people try to get the club head speed number up. I would tell them, 50% of distance is club head speed, 50% of distance is ball speed.
Can I jump in?
Go for it.
I've been in the gym. I've increased a little bit of speed on my driver. Irons has been a lot more speed than driver, but I'm hitting the driver significantly further because centerness of contact has improved by going to the gym more than the club head speed has improved by going to the gym. So ball speed numbers, like you're saying, ball speed numbers are through the roof.
So
in relationship to where it was, not Braden's level. Sorry.
But again, a lot of times people come to us with the notion that I have to swing at this harder. Well, if you can't deliver it, it's going to go shorter. And then you look for the thresholds of what's too much and what's not enough. And when I look at patterns, if you try to hit the ball harder, that's going to require more work. More work's going to require more movement. More movement's going to require more dispersion.
On that note, Mark, because you've been really into the ground force stuff for a good 5 years plus, but how long have you been using your GASP?
I got introduced to GASP, I would probably say about 7 years now.
Okay, so when you use it to teach and you're ultimately on a program with an individual and you're trying to get them more speed or more speed and
balance.
Distance, are you using just concepts to get their forces better? Or is part of it getting them to like literally think swing faster or harder?
You want to tell them what GASP Lab is first?
So GASP Lab is Steve Gold from the UK, has AMTI plates, and they're dual force plates. When I first started down this journey, I was on a pressure mat called Body Track. I thought I knew a lot, but when Steve introduced GASP to me, it opened up a whole new can of worms and things I never would have imagined. And it really helped me figure out what's fact or what's fiction. So the whole concept of getting your weight off your back foot is the biggest garbage you can teach somebody. Get your weight to your front foot. How fast can you get it?
So just for the listeners that might not be familiar, there are two plates on the ground that you stand on, and you're hitting balls off of them, and it's measuring your weight distribution, your pressure patterns, and the force, the energy that your body is producing to push into the ground, to then use the ground to push back at you, which influences club speed.
Exactly. So it measures a lateral, rotational, and a vertical motion. And you look at those and you see what patterns, you see when they're doing them, how they're sequencing them, how long they're doing them, and you see where someone can get injured, someone cannot get injured. But I'll give you an example. So yesterday I'm giving a young lady a lesson who's got no club face control, and she's got all this throwaway. And she was trying to push so hard to her left side. She was trying to get left. So her lateral motion was so extreme that when you increase a force, you decrease another force. So I had her to do the total opposite. I told her to load her trail leg, her right leg on the downswing, so she didn't go as far forward, and she started to square it up and her ball speed went off went off the charts.
So may the force be with you,
There you
not
go.
without you.
So when I'm using the ground forces, I'm trying to figure out how the person moves the best. There's a zillion different ways to do it.
And there's not one way.
No,
and that's
no.
why
Someone tall,
strict
someone-
method
Yep.
teaching is dangerous.
Exactly.
And I mean, whether it's the actual picture of the golf swing or ground forces or putting or playing, right? You have to embrace who you are, what your body's going to give you, what the patterns that you have are, any injuries, whatever, right? I'm just never going to hit the ball. I'm going to chase and try to catch up with him and use my swing catalyst to catch you. But we're all individuals, and that's the beauty of it, and that's what this technology is showing us. To me, it's confirming, in my opinion, it's confirming the non-method teachers that there's more than one way to do it. I think some of the methods out there actually have a lot of great information, but we have to customize it, tailor it to the individual. And so I just want to say this, when we think about teaching nowadays, right, and all this science and all this fancy stuff, at the end of the day, I actually think the easiest part of it as a teacher is to learn it, but it's still the art in the instinct as a teacher to know what you're going to work on with the person in that particular lesson, in a certain pattern, in a certain timeline, within the process to help a golfer get better. I don't care if that's a beginner, a scratch player, a tour player. So nowadays, a lot of people, they watch YouTube, they watch Instagram, they see all this stuff, and they try to self-diagnose and figure it out. You still have to be able to be an artist as a teacher and guide someone and give them the right pieces at the right time.
Let me throw something there. And I think this is why this group was constructed, because what I found really cool when we did our first brainstorming idea, I gave a junior a lesson. He was asking me about course management, and I literally leaned on what Braden said about knowing your dispersion with a driver, knowing your dispersion, whatever he said. I don't want to give you too much stuff. And what I learned from Braden that night on the course management, I never thought before. And I told that young kid to do that, and we actually did it on TrackMan, and it helped him out. And then the time I spent with Michael Little, Michael's doing some phenomenal stuff with putting that's just blowing me away. And the presentation that you gave, I have a whole world to learn, but again, I feel I'm starting to understand about impact
ratio.
See, I got a lot to learn. Impact ratio, ball roll, things I never thought before. And again, talking to John about how he uses technology amongst me, like me. But I think when someone comes to our program, you're going to get 4 different personalities. You're going to get a little bit of everything. And from, I like to think I have an idea of what I'm doing, a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. And with the knowledge I took away from that one night, I went back and jotted notes. I couldn't believe how much stuff I jotted down from just a small little setting. So when people come and look at the Philly Foursome, I think to me it's really, I think it's really going to be a fun journey to go on with a great group of guys, with a great group of professionals, with a really smart group. And I think the reason why we picked this group is it was based off success. It's not about what anyone thinks or opinions of us. I mean, if you look at the guys that are in this room with me, I think they're the best at what they do.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
That's that. We appreciate
You guys
that.
can
But
chime.
we're
Yeah.
still every day. I mean, and there's, it's so cool because in the golf profession, especially within the whole teaching world, there's more good teachers now than ever, and there's more teachers that are so passionate about sharing and about learning and about improving and growing and being self-critical or self-reflective about what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what did I do well on the lesson tee today, what did I do wrong, how can I learn and grow, that we can continue to share, but ultimately help the golfers out there get better, understand, have more fun, whatever.
Yeah, and these videos we're doing are not just going to be us standing there just talking either. We're going to have some live lessons in there, right?
All sorts of stuff.
All sorts of things.
We're going to learn as we go.
Yeah, and it's, hey, this is a pattern that we see. This is what we're recommending moving forward. Things like that versus just like a scripted out video. It's
right.
It's more of a conversation,
right? But also important and high quality content.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm pretty excited just to see what you guys put out. I have an idea of what I'm going to put out in terms of strategy, course management, prepping for tour events, etc. Going to do some good information there and kind of go in depth and share a lot and maybe do some stuff inside the ropes, which would be cool. I'm really curious to see what you guys do. I'm excited.
Well, my 4 videos are already up, so you can look at mine. So we're going to have 16 videos a month, right?
Yeah, we'll start with that, 4 a week. And go from there, yeah.
Yeah.
And then as we morph, we'd like to take questions and answers where I think we said we're going to try to meet every once in a while and do a live sitting where people actually engage with us live, ask us questions and, talk about your questions.
We don't know where this whole Philly Foursome thing's going to go, but we're going to have fun doing it.
All good things start with an idea. I think you get a strong team and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm absolutely excited for it.
Love it.
Cool.
So we have an Instagram channel. It's at Philly Foursome on Instagram.
Facebook.
We don't have the Facebook established yet, but we'll have Facebook, Philly Foursome.
It's there. We have the name. We just haven't developed it yet.
And for everyone
Add
who's
that to
watching
the
this,
daily
just make
list.
sure that, the cool journey is, not to interrupt you, Michael, but we're just starting this thing and we're still learning about, we just started an LLC and we're the logo and this and it's
A process.
Exactly.
Yeah, this isn't just turn the key and go.
Exactly.
There's been a lot to this, and I think that's been a lot of fun. It's like to get to know, all of us getting to know each other even more through that process, and it's like,
Big time.
how does this person handle that situation, and it's like we've gotten along very well and we blended very well through that process. And I appreciate you guys for that.
I mean, Mike, you even got a haircut. We're still wondering what kind of product Braden uses in his hair. We know what kind of product Mark uses on his
Razor
head.
blade.
So we're getting to know each other.
Yeah, it's great. But no, we will have a Patreon account as well.
Yeah, that'll be a big part of the Philly Foursome, right?
Yep, that's where you can find all of our videos. Is going to be on Patreon. And then we will have a YouTube channel that's Philly Foursome. So everything is Philly Foursome. That's where you can find us. And then eventually we'll have a little website as well.
All right.
Good
This
stuff.
was fun, guys.
Yeah.
Michael, Mark, Braden,
Had a great time.
good to be with you boys.
Gentlemen,
Great being with you.
All
thanks,
right.
guys.